Once upon a time, deep in the heart of the eastern region of Nigeria, stood the mighty Ijele kingdom. Ijele was ruled by a powerful king, King Afamifuna. King Afamifuna was not just a king, he was a fearsome warrior coming from a lineage of warrior kings. His subjects adored him not only because he was a powerful warrior who had led them to victory in countless battles, but also because of his compassionate heart. He ruled Ijele Kingdom with both strength and compassion. He frequently ventured out of the palace, visiting the poor and the sick, ensuring they had enough to eat and a place to sleep. His queen, Obidia, was his perfect counterpart, a woman of exceptional beauty and wisdom. She strengthened him during moments of doubt and never failed to shower him with heartfelt praises that highlighted both his strength as a warrior and his love for his people. Nwoke dị ebube, eze ọma nke ndị Ijele, eze na-enye ọṅụ, obi m. You are not just a king, you are the very heart of our people. You will live long, my king. These words always made the heart of King Afamifuna swell with pride, knowing that he had a queen who believed in him as much as he believed in himself. The kingdom rejoiced when Queen Obidia gave birth to a son, Obiago. The child was named after his grandfather, the late King Obiago, whom King Afamifuna succeeded. He was also a fierce warrior whose name struck fear in the hearts of their enemies. The palace was filled with joy and music, with the villagers dancing and singing praises for the newborn prince. While the merriment was in full swing at the palace, another birth was happening that night. In a small, humble hut, an orphaned maiden, one of those who King Afamifuna had taken under his care, gave birth to a baby girl. This maiden was put in the family way by a man who denied having anything to do with her. Sadly, she developed some complications shortly after the baby was born, and she passed away, leaving the beautiful baby girl named Chimwanya without a mother. King Afamifuna, upon hearing the news, immediately assigned a kind-hearted woman to care for Chimwanya. Chimwanya grew up under the king's protection, blossoming into a fierce and determined young woman. She grew up surrounded by the stories of the great warriors of Ijele, particularly the tales of King Afamifuna and his ancestors' bravery in battle. She idolized the king and was determined to become a warrior herself, despite the ridicule she faced from other girls in the village. Chimwanya, why do you bother with swords and spears? A young girl once taunted. You should be preparing to be a good wife. Chimwanya, with fire in her eyes, would always reply, I belong to the battlefield, not the kitchen. The spirits have called me to fight, and fight I shall. Prince Obiago, on the other hand, grew up to be a powerful warrior, like his father. The king trained him personally, ensuring that he understood not just the art of war, but also the responsibilities that came with power. A true warrior, King Afamifuna would say, fights not just for himself, but for his people. Remember this, my son. As he grew older, Obiago noticed Chimwanya more and more. She was unlike any other woman in the kingdom, bold, fearless, and skilled with a spear. He admired her spirit, and admiration turned into something deeper. Chimwanya continued to prove herself on the battlefield, often fighting side by side with Obiago. Their bond grew stronger with each battle they fought. But Chimwanya remained oblivious to the growing affection Obiago held for her. One day, Obiago decided to express his feelings. Chimwanya, I have seen many warriors, but none like you. You are the fiercest of all, but also the most beautiful. Chimwanya scoffed. Save your words for the other maidens of Ijele, Prince. I am not a lady of the palace. But I don't need a lady of the palace, Obiago pressed on, his voice earnest. I need a warrior by my side, both in battle and in life. I need you, Chimwanya. Chimwanya's expression softened, but only for a moment. My place is on the battlefield, not in the palace, she insisted. You may choose a more fitting bride, Obiago. Obiago wasn't deterred. I too love the battlefield, Chimwanya. But I believe we could live together, fight together, and rule together. The kingdom needs a queen who is as fierce as she is wise. And I cannot imagine a queen more fitting than you. For months, Obiago tried to win her over, showering her with royal attention and treating her like a queen, even when she rejected the notion. Gradually, Chimwanya found herself drawn not just to his persistence, but to the genuine love and respect he showed her. She began to yield to the idea of love, and eventually she agreed to marry him. The entire kingdom celebrated as Obiago and Chimwanya were married in a grand ceremony. Chimwanya, now wearing the attire of a queen, still maintained her warrior's stance. She knew that her place in the palace did not mean abandoning her love for battle. She had chosen to walk this path because she saw in Obiago someone who understood her passion for war and her heart's desire for justice. After their marriage, Chimwanya continued to fight alongside her husband in battles. Obiago admired her even more, and the people of Ijele Kingdom revered her as their warrior queen. Several years later, King Afamefuna and Queen Obidia passed away peacefully, and Obiago was crowned king. The kingdom mourned the loss of their beloved rulers, but soon celebrated the ascension of the new king and queen. Together, Obiago and Chimwanya ruled wisely, with compassion and strength, mirroring the legacy of King Afamefuna and Queen Obidia. Their reign was filled with prosperity, and the kingdom continued to thrive. Soon, the queen became pregnant, and the people eagerly awaited the birth of the royal heir. When their daughter was born, they named her Adago. She was as beautiful as her mother, and as was the custom, Adago was soon adorned with a special necklace that was worn only by the royal family of Ijele. This necklace was passed down from generations and was worn only by royalty from Obiago's lineage. Obiago and Chimwanya cherished their daughter deeply. They did everything to ensure she grew up loved and protected. During family time, they would sing a special song that Chimwanya had composed. It was a lullaby that became Adago's favorite. She would always insist that the lullaby be sung to her every night. At just 2 years old, she was already humming the tune of this special lullaby as she played around the palace. Whenever she played and wandered far from her play areas, her caregiver would easily find her by trailing her melodious voice, singing her favorite lullaby. The king and queen also never failed to emphasize the importance of the special necklace she had been adorned with right after her birth, and why she must never take it off. Obiago, dedicated to preparing Adago for whatever life would bring, started taking her on horse rides around the kingdom when she was barely 5 years old. He wanted these moments to be special bonding moments with his daughter, and so he restricted the guards and caregivers from coming along because they would attract a lot of attention from the people. During these rites, the king and his princess would come down from their horse and walk around. He would tell her tales of the kingdom's history and teach her the values of leadership, even though she was too young to understand fully. One evening, while on one of these rides, they rode far away to the outskirts of the kingdom, and suddenly a violent storm began. Before they could take shelter, their horse bolted and collided with a big tree. Obiagu and Adagu were thrown from the horse, landing far from each other. Both of them fell unconscious. By this time, it was already dark. Adagu was lying unconscious when she was discovered by a kind woman who happened to be passing through the outskirts of Ijele Kingdom to return to her village, which was far away from that region. She could see the special locket around Adagu's neck, and she decided she would investigate it after she must have given her first aid at home. Unfortunately, she lost the locket while crossing a small stream. The woman took Adagu in and cared for her, unaware of her royal lineage. However, King Obiagu's whereabouts remained unknown. Back in the kingdom, Chimanya was consumed with fear when neither her husband nor her daughter returned. She dispatched soldiers and villagers to search the forest, rivers, and hills, but no one could find any trace of them. Months passed, yet nothing was heard about King Obiagu and Princess Adagu. Confused and overwhelmed with grief, Queen Chimwanya considered giving up the throne, but a dream changed her mind. In the dream, Obiagu stood before her and said, "You are a queen for such a time as this. Lead our people." With renewed determination, Chimwanya took up the mantle of leadership and ruled the kingdom with unwavering strength. Years passed, and though her heart longed for her family, she kept the kingdom stable and prosperous. 20 years later, far away in the village of Unto, Adagu grew up with the kind woman who had rescued her that night. Her name was Oluchi. She was a widow with 2 children who were already grown up and had their own families. The woman renamed Adagu Onyinyechi, since Adagu was too shaken by the accident to remember her name. The only thing she could remember was her favorite lullaby, which she sang to herself at night. Even though Oluchi took good care of her, Adagu did not receive this same kindness from the other inhabitants of Unto village. She was often mocked by her mates, who discovered that Oluchi had picked her up from the forest. She was called names like Nwohia, which meant a child from the forest. Nobody cared to call her Onyinyechi. Her existence in the village seemed to be a source of constant ridicule among her peers, and they made it a point of duty to always remind her that she was only alive because Oluchi rescued her from rotting in the forest. Oluchi would always comfort her, saying, "People will always say what they want, Oni, but do not let their dark words cloud your light. You see, your strength is not in the circumstances surrounding your existence. Your strength is within, my child. So close your ears to mockers and live the beautiful life you have ahead of you." However, Adago could not help but wonder why her life was filled with such cruelty and hardship. While fetching water from the village stream one morning, Adago stumbled upon a shiny object buried in the sand, a beautiful necklace with a unique crested locket. She felt an unexplainable connection to it, as if it held a piece of her lost past. She took it home to Oluchi, who carefully examined the locket attached to the necklace. "This locket, it's of royal make," Oluchi whispered, holding it tightly as if it might vanish. She could see the words Ezinolo Ezendi Ijele, which meant the royal family of Ijele, crested inside. But how did it end up at our stream? She wondered. Then she slowly recalled that she had traveled through the outskirts of Ijele on that day she had found Adago in the forest. She also remembered that Adago had been wearing something that looked like it. From that day, Adago began to wear the necklace as her most prized possession. She still felt some sort of connection to it, but there was nothing she could do other than hope that it would bring her good luck. Whenever Oluchi saw the necklace on Adago's neck, she felt uneasy. She battled with the thoughts that this necklace might just be the link between her beloved Onyinyechi and her biological family. One day, she decided to do what had since been on her mind. She embarked on the 2 days journey to Ijele Kingdom with the necklace. Since the locket was of royal make, she headed straight to the palace as soon as she arrived in Ijele.